I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 2nd, brought to you in part by Noromycin by Norbrook. Noromycin 300 LA is an economical 300 milligram oxytetracycline for a broad spectrum of cattle diseases and infections. For more information, go to norbrook.com. We've got a corn mirage. I'm always talking about your cattle market mirage as far as the futures are. Guys are looking out there and thinking, oh my gosh, look what we're going to get for our commodity. And then as it gets closer, it just starts to evaporate and evaporate even more. And as your corn farmers up in the corn belt are getting started to grease up their combines and getting things ready to start harvest, their new crop December corn futures are evaporating pretty fast. Now, I guess we could have expected that. Your fat cattle guys are used to it all the time. I mean, suddenly we're tickled to death with 123 or 4 in the south and maybe 26 or 7 in the north, when we thought all along we were going to be deep in the 130s by now. But December new crop corn down 11.5 on Wednesday to close at 522 3/4 now. I've spoken many times about how, you know, a few months back we were talking about listening and reading from some of these analysts, especially technical analysts, and they were predicting we were going to have $7, $8, $10 corn, maybe $12, $15 corn. You know, why does anybody pay any attention to those idiots? You know, they can put that crap out there and get everybody all excited, and a lot of that was just kind of excitement. But your December is the highest quoted trading month that we have out there, and you go out there a long ways and it starts to get back there kind of where we expected corn to be for a long time. Talking with one of my contacts on Wednesday morning, and she said that she was starting to hear kind of a big rumbling about a lot of people buying calls for $7 corn next summer, and you could buy them for a little and nothing. And if people get all excited again, they run it up again, and then it comes back down. That could be quite a heyday. Might be worth buying a lotto ticket on that, but just something that I saw. Your Fed Cattle Exchange with Central Stockyards did a good job on Wednesday morning. We saw the Packers come in and give 124 and 124 1/4 in the Southern Plains. Now, we totally were not expecting that at all. And likely we're back to where we were back when the pandemic first started there over a year ago, when we were working off charity bids. You know, the margins on your Packers are getting back over $1,100. Of course, their box beef cutout values are falling like a rock, though. But you know, they didn't have to give 124, 124 1/4. But I guess they got a little bit of shame. Well, no, not sure why they did it. I can't say they have any feelings, any heart, or any shame. But for some reason or another, they give 124 and 124 1/4 for some cattle in the Southern Plains, and I don't think it's because they needed them right now. That they just decided to do it. They're starting to close the gap a little bit between the premium that the Northern Plains is getting for their fat cattle and what the Southern Plains is getting. But you know, we got a little bit of trade, 24, 24 1/4, and then we saw a little bit of direct trade after that, as high as 124, and then we saw some other that was more like steady. But you know, they gave them the opportunity to do it, and they did it. So kudos this week to the Fed Cattle Exchange through Central Stockyards. It did its job. It opened up an open market with some competition there, and they indeed got a higher price. Now, I guarantee you the guys in the Southern Plains that sell direct weren't thinking that they were going to get 124. That they didn't have a good feeling about it. But we got it there. They closed the gap a little bit between the North and the South, and it was a good thing. Got some other news on Wednesday that this truth in labeling on product of the USA. You know, we saw an executive order that included that, and then we saw USDA say they were going to get to work on it, and we've kind of been promised to get truth in labeling product of the USA. Now, Mike Round, senator from South Dakota, he's got a bill out there that would force the issue a little bit more. But got some news that may be coming down the pike. Was it a press release or anything like that? No. It was just the fact that on new contracts, at least one packer has really cranked up the discounts on Mexican cattle. And that's about the best news, or the news that made me think that may happen more than anything. But don't think that those packers don't have lobbyists, people in that American Meat Institute, people that they're hearing what's going on, they're hearing rumblings. You know, they like to process that product and then freeze it, which kind of helps them fill their coffers so they keep the market subdued all the time. Well, if they're going to start tearing into some Mexican cattle now, and down the line here a few months we get that truth in labeling on product of the USA, that could be a problem if you've got some Mexican product in there. Now you think, what about Canadian product? Canadians are short of cattle right now. They're our best friend. They have been buying cattle for the last 6-8 months a year, buying feeder cattle, taking them off our hands, feeding them up there, processing them up there, and then it's gone. And they're fantastic. So, you know, don't think we're getting overrun with Canadian cattle, especially steers and heifers. Their market up there is better than what we have here. So, but we do get a lot of Mexican feeder cattle coming in. Guys like them because they're really hardy. We talked about that not too long ago. The health on them is excellent. And in the southern plains, especially on wheat and things like that, guys would rather have the Mexican cattle than the southeast cattle because they're easier to keep alive. But if we start thinking that this truth in labeling on product of the USA is going to come to fruit, that could change things a whole bunch. Now, so, you know, so these packers know what's going on. They act like they're oblivious to all of our trade associations trying to get something done outside of NCBA. Of course, they work for the packers. But, you know, some of our grassroots trade associations like RCAF and U.S. Cattlemen's Associations and the like, and some of our smaller state groups and local groups trying to get something done. But just think what would happen if they started hearing coming down the pike that we were going to get a minimum negotiated cash trade mandate. I guarantee you we would know through them before we'd probably hear anywhere else. You know, they'd be coming in with their hat in their hand to some of these feedlots that still sell negotiated cash. Oh, well, how you been? I haven't seen you for several years. You know, how's the wife and kids and everybody doing all right? You know, been meaning to call you. Haven't talked to you for a long time. Yeah, and your small negotiated cash seller would be like, yeah, right, you asshole. You know, you haven't returned my calls for 5 years. So that would be very interesting if we could get something coming down the pike like that, and I still haven't ruled it out, although I do think the irons are cooling quite a bit. But let's talk about your board for Wednesday. October live cattle up 67 cents at 127.57. December up 12 at 133.60. Go on your back months of live cattle, pretty mixed from down 75 to up 70. September feeder cattle down 7 cents at 162.92. October feeder cattle up 30 at 168.05. Go on your back months of your feeder cattle, they were all up big. Up 87 to up 152, and it's response to the wheat corn. And one thing that's really ringing true about this wheat corn is because we're starting to get more samplings of what yields are going to be, and evidently they're looking pretty good because your corn is really slipping as we start to inch closer to our major harvest areas. How about fat cattle? Like I said, we had some surprising trade there, and I'll talk about that in the southern plains, but we had trade in the northern plains, and it just wasn't too awful bad. You know, I like to bitch about it a lot, but you know, gotta give them credit where credit's due, because it was really looking like a downer earlier in the week. But Iowa sold about 2,700 head confirmed from 126 to 127.5, and that's pretty much fully steady. Now dressed is down pretty hard from 197 to 204, but it was mostly 203, and that would be off a little bit, but you know, not as bad as some of those low balls on the dress like the 197. But Nebraska, 6,000 head confirmed on Wednesday. That's the best day's trading they've had for a while. everything at 126 live, and that ain't the worst either. And dress trade from 199 to 203 there, and heavy on the 203, like I said. Kansas about 2,200 head on Wednesday. Live sales 123 and 124. And like I said, the Fed Cattle Exchange was instrumental on the 124. Texas 2,400 head there, and their live sales are 122 to 124 and a quarter. They did have one pen that brought 4 and a quarter on the Fed Cattle Exchange. So not as bad as what I kind of feared Monday and Tuesday. But box beef cutout values down pretty hard. You know, these poor packers, I mean, they ain't making but like $1,100 a head, owning these cattle as much as 2 weeks at a time. You got to feel for them. Choice cuts 338.45 down 366. Selects down 446 at 307.57. Slaughter is outpacing last week quite a bit. 357,000 through Wednesday. That's 8,000 more than last week. Just 1,000 more than the same week a year ago. You guys that are nervous about these markets and you still like your futures out there, you can still lock in some really good livestock risk protection. Get a hold of Livestock Risk Services. Got an office there in Oklahoma City in the Stockyards Exchange building there, but you can sure get help with them. You can lock in a feeder cattle price and settle it on the cash index rather than your futures. That is a good deal because we feel more comfortable with your cash index because it's fundamental and it's true and it's a cash price. I'd like the RTI better because we put that together and it's more current. But the cash index ain't the worst, and that wouldn't be too bad to tie your wagon to there. And Livestock Risk Services can find an LRP they have different classifications. They can find one for all types of cattle operations. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market and your sale barns. Real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday at 157.78. Pretty much steady with last week. All your markets there was up just 3 cents a hundred, so nothing, but pretty good steady market on your yearling feeders there, and the big calves that are sneaking in there ain't pulling it down too awful bad. How about your big sales from Wednesday? OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 6,600 head, including the calves that they had on Tuesday. Feeders are mostly steady, so we figured that. Calves $1 to $3 lower, and it's mostly those ballers because it's still hot. Those ballers coming in that's sucking that calf market down. You know, if you had some weaned and turned back out calves, they'll still bring a hell of a ticket there, but as a whole, your calves are just being pulled down by your fleshy ballers. But how about a stick out sale in El Reno? 247 head, 760 pound steers in a thin flesh condition bring $166. That's pretty good price there for anywhere. How about Pays Public Auction Yards in Billings, Montana? 63 head of calves weighed 501 at 188.50. Maybe you don't think it's that high. As high as some of these yearlings are selling, it doesn't really sound all that high, but that's the best quote that I could find anywhere on lighter weight calves. You get down in the low fours, they'll bring over $2 a pound, but they still kind of look like a deal if they were a long time weaned and turned out, but you just don't find them this early in the season that way. But how about Green City Livestock Marketing? Green City, Missouri, that's in the Green Hills, north central Missouri. 64 head, 808 pound steers bring $164.75. But the best quote that I saw anywhere in your Zach Tran top quote for the day on Wednesday come out of Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming. 240 head and one whack weighed 965 at 158.50. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.